Hello, everybody. This is Atheist PK here. I'm an atheist pastor's kid, and today I'm going to play both sides here. And I'm actually going to do a list of three things to do and three things not to do if you want to convert people to Christianity. Note that this is only my opinion from what I've seen. Some things might be slightly controversial. Some things might you might agree with, you may not agree with, but we'll try to go through this pretty quickly. And if you are a Christian, this might help you make more Christians. Um, so we'll see how it goes. The first thing to do if you want to convert people to Christianity is to build community. That's the strong portion of a church. I think that's one of the biggest things that keeps people in church is the community. And there's a few ways that you can do that. You need to hold events to bring people in the first place. This can be youth, children's events. You can do some church sports leagues. You can have church lunches and dinners. Make it a big event, man. Have barbecues outside. Have lunch after Sunday morning service. All of those things are going to help to strengthen the community inside of a church. You can hold theatrical events, hold Christmas plays, things like that. This is also going to build that strength in your community. You can sponsor local events and you can create opportunities for inclusion. If you are wanting to get people on your side and keep them there, it's going to be essential that you're able to really put the community at the forefront of your church. And from my experience, what I've seen growing up in churches, the strongest churches are the ones that have a very strong sense of community. Not only is that going to keep the people who are in the church right now in the church because they have friends, they have family, they constantly make new friends. That's huge. And then it's going to allow them to reach out to other people and say, "Hey, we have this community. You need to come be a part of this." And then once they do come and they're like-minded, they're going to stay. And so let's go to the actual first do not point. Don't street preach. It's annoying. People are trying to live their lives. They're trying to go to lunch, they're trying to go to dinner, they're trying to walk, they're trying to drive, and you're outside with a bullhorn on the side of the road yelling at them for the most part. And I get it. You're thinking of a way where can I get the message out to a lot of people. However, it's not a good place to do it in that setting. Um, for the most part, it makes you and anyone you're affiliated with look crazy. Even when I was a Christian, when I would see a street preacher on the side of the road, I wanted nothing to do with that. I didn't even want that to be associated with Christianity. They're always holding up signs, yelling random Bible verses. Sometimes they're yelling that you're going to go to hell. They're yelling tons of stuff that the rapture's coming soon. All these things. It's too much. It's not a good look. And from my experience, it doesn't even work. I haven't heard a single story of somebody who was driving down the road, they see a street preacher, then all of a sudden they're just converted to Christianity. As far as I'm aware, I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it's happened, but I have not experienced that. The next thing is do create personal experiences. Almost all of the conversion stories that I've heard of, if you have if you have a non-theist becoming a theist, or if you have someone who used to be a theist come back to theism, it's because they had a personal experience with God. I say that in air quotes. I don't believe there is a God. However, pretty much anytime you hear someone talk about why they believe in God, it's because I know He's real. I know Him like my wife is real. You need those personal experiences. How can you get those personal experiences? Given the fact that I don't believe there is a God, I don't think that you can actually introduce people to Him. But here are the things that you can do. You can do engaging worship sessions, and that includes the pacing of the service itself. If you're able to generate that atmosphere of the presence of God, which is mainly just group think, that's going to be huge. You need to build up the expectations. When you're in your worship service, you need to say, "I know He's here today. Can you feel Him?" Things like that. That's going to really build up the expectations. Once you have a good worship service and you're able to project that, the word of mouth is going to spread. People are going to say, hey, something's happening here. And you're going to start getting more people coming to your church, more people believing in God. It's huge. And you're going to need active church members. You need people when you do a worship service participating in that worship. You need them. You need the people that are going to be shouting hallelujah and saying amen. That's the type of people you need because that generates the environment to where people are going to have more opportunities to have a personal experience. And you're going to need synergy in your church. You need people who are all thinking alike, who, when you have a bunch of people come into a church with a mindset that something's going to happen, and then you start layering in those other things, it's going to generate that environment to where more people are going to hop on board with you. That is huge. So let's jump on down to the next do not. This might be somewhat controversial. Controversial. I do not think churches or Christians should engage in apologetics, and there's a few reasons for that. For the majority of existing Christians, it's not necessary to engage in apologetics. Um, most Christians that I'm familiar with just don't really go about their lives thinking about whether or not what they believe is true or not. A lot of them are have been Christians for their entire life and they never plan on changing that. They never have a reason or any incentive to start looking outside of that. So if you're a church or if you're a Christian that's trying to bring up apologetics, you're basically prompting them. You're giving them you start saying these things like you bring up the cosmological argument, all these other arguments that creates opportunities for people to say, well, maybe that doesn't make sense to me. Maybe I don't agree with that point. It's better just to avoid that entirely. And in fact, a large amount of the deconversion stories that I hear, not just from people that I know, but from, watch a bunch of YouTube videos where atheists talk about what made them become atheist. A lot of them were people who were studying to strengthen their faith. They were actually studying and then they got into apologetics and they actually found, you know what? I'm actually taking the opposite side. And it actually led them out of their Christianity. So, in my opinion, I don't think the churches should engage in that. Use the best assets that you have to your advantage and stay away from what doesn't work for you. Churches are really good at creating communities and creating personal experiences in the earlier points. Lean into that and don't lean into trying to convince people through argumentation. I just don't think that the, I've never really heard. I'm sure it's happened once again, but I have not heard that many stories or had that many experiences where somebody was an unbeliever and heard the cosmological argument and suddenly became a Christian, or they contemplated the fine tuning argument and they weren't a Christian before, and then all of a sudden they're a Christian. That's just my experience. You can disagree, but that's what I've seen. Do get them while they're young. Now I'm not saying do this. I'm against this. I'm an atheist. What I'm saying is if you are a Christian and you want to have more Christians, your best shot is getting to prospective new theists while they're young. You need to get kids in church. If you are a parent and you have kids, if you want your kids to be Christians, you probably should get them in church. If they don't go to church, they're just going to grow up probably with the default that even if they are somewhat theist, they won't really be Christians. They'll just have like a loose idea of theism. You need to have events and camps for kids and youth. This is going to start building that community from an early age. You have these kids, they get used to going to these events. They make all their friends at these events, and then they just grow up and have lifelong friends that the majority, if not all of them, are going to stay Christians. And then that's great for you theists, not for me. But yeah, I mean, I think that's huge. And I think that you should prevent kids from accessing atheist content. Um, that's going to be really hard to do. That's going to be a challenge. Kids are in school. We have the internet. It's huge. That's part of my deconversion story. When I was younger, was I had access to all the wealth of information that's out there on the internet. to research this as much as possible. I think if you want your kids to stay being a theist, you should probably prevent them from watching or accessing atheist content. I, if they start going deep on some of these things, I think that they might develop their own opinions. Uh, the last, this is the last do not point. It's just do not act a fool, and that can mean a lot of things. I know that the fundamentalism is huge, and I grew up in the South. I grew up in churches in the South. Um, I've seen what goes on in a lot of these churches in the South, and it's absolutely wild. And the problem with that is people these days they have access to social media, and there are whole accounts which I'm actually going to make a video soon about some accounts where all they do is post crazy Christian activities. And people have access to social media, so if you're on a church and you're consistently acting crazy, you're doing all these wild things, and you know what wild things I'm talking about. Even if you're a Christian, you know you don't agree with all the things that these other churches are doing, and there's all these activities that you would say, um, it's not inspired by God, it's not of the Spirit, things like that. You're going to end up on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and it's not a good look. It may actually come back to bite you. You might lose attendance. You might get a bunch of other Christians calling you out. You know, there's so many flavors of Christianity. If you go too far to any side of Christianity, you're going to have other sects of Christianity that's going to call you out on it and say that you're of the devil. There's absolutely no way you should not be doing that. So, in my general opinion, just avoid it in general. So that's about it. Let's recap real quick. Let's look at the three things that you should do if you want to convert people to Christianity. You do want to build community. You do want to create personal experiences, and you do want to get to kids while they're young and make little young Christians. The things that you do not want to do, you do not want to street preach. You do not want to engage in apologetics, and you do not want to act a fool. Pretty simple things, in my opinion. Just for most of this part, just go about being a church. Be a fairly normal church. Just go about doing what you do. Don't lean too heavy onto any side of anything, and just continue to hold public. Don't be a church that just sits there and only is catered to your own church community. You want to branch out and you want to promote yourself to people, and you want to try to get people in there and hold those events and try as much as possible to build a community, but just don't go too far with it. And as far as the things to not do, once again, that's pretty much the same thing. Just go about your daily lives as a church. Um, don't go too heavy. You don't want to seem desperate. You know what I'm saying? Um, but that's about it for today. I'm gonna leave the comment section open, or I anticipate to. So if there's anything that you resonate with or you disagree with, go ahead and drop it down there. Like I said, I am an atheist, but I am also a pastor's kid, so I've been around this my entire life. I think I know what I'm talking about with some of these things. You may have a different view, but if you do, drop it in the comments and let me know. This is my first video on my channel, so if you want more content, if you want the production quality to get better, things like that, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to be releasing more videos. I'm going to be doing more content. I'm planning to do some reaction videos and to things, especially related to this topic, crazy Christians and things like that. I'm gonna react to that, and we'll see if we can come together and agree on that or not. But I'm gonna end it there. Once again, drop me a like. My first goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we'll see what happens after that. See y'all later.